Who are you listening to? Welcome to CB5 TV. My name is Aidan Campbell-Brazier. Everyone knows the story of Jesus walking on the water in Matthew 14. We know it like the back of our hand. But when we really look at this story, there's something in it that is very much interesting to us, and it speaks to us, and it's where we are in life. In Matthew 8, we see Jesus and the disciples in the boat again, and Jesus is sleeping, and the disciples are scared of the storm. And they wake Jesus up, and Jesus speaks to the storm. He shows his authority by speaking to the thing and calming it. In Matthew 14, we see something different. What we see is Jesus still showing his authority, but just in a different way. The disciples are on the boat, and there is a storm that's raging. There is a violent storm that is being violent against the boat and smashing the boat, and the disciples are scared and they think that they're gonna die. And then they see their help coming in a way that they didn't ask for, they didn't expect, and actually they didn't see it as help, they saw it as a ghost. So number one, we see help coming in a way that is impossible, because Jesus is now walking on the water towards them. Bearing in mind the storm is still raging. And what we see is Jesus speaking through the storm. The storm is still going. The boat is still being smashed. The winds are loud. The waves are crashing. And Jesus decides to, instead of speaking to the storm, he speaks to the disciples. And he says, do not be afraid. Take courage. I am here. So he settles them in the midst of chaos, in the midst of life and death, some may say, in the midst of something that we feel like we're going to die. He speaks to them and he tells them, do not be afraid. Take courage, for I am here. So he settles them. And then what we see is Peter semi-believing what Jesus says, semi-believing, in the words that have been spoken, in the courage, in the comfort that's been spoken. And then what we see is Peter says, if it's you, we see Peter now proving God. He's proving who Jesus is. He says, if it's you, then tell me to walk on the water. What Peter just done was prove Jesus and say, if it's you, tell me to walk out on the impossible, because walking on water is impossible. Scientifically, we shouldn't be able to walk on the water. So if it's you, then tell me to come out into the impossible. And we see the famous 4 words that Jesus says, come. He says, come. And now Peter's in a position where he has to now think about, I really have to go out now. I really have to go out, and I really have to walk on something that's impossible. I really have to do something that's impossible. And what we see is Peter walking on the water. But as Peter's walking on the water, I want us to consider something. I want us to consider, whose voice are we listening to? Because as Peter's walking on the water, you have the voice of Jesus that tells him to come. The voice that brings comfort. The voice that brings direction. The voice that is calming. The voice and the instruction that defies all odds. And then we have the voice of the storm. And the storm representing life, marriage, relationship, friendship, finances, work, children, houses, flats, businesses, cars. But whatever the storm is raging. So it's easy to get to look at the storm. It's easy to focus on the storm than focus on the instruction of God. The storm is raging. So that's the second voice. The third voice is the boat, because he would have had his disciples, his friends, his brothers saying to him, do not do it. You're going to die. Do not do it. So now the voice of the boat is loud. And then there's the last voice, the fourth voice, the voice of Peter himself. probably doubting himself. Peter, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Do you need to do this? That was a stupid thing that you said. Now you have to commit. Now anything can happen. Now I could die. So now we see that there's 4 voices. And what we see is that when Peter is focusing on Jesus, when he's focusing on the calming voice, when he's focusing on the instruction, when he's focused on Jesus Christ, he's now walking on the water. But Peter does something that us as humans do. He starts to focus on the storm, because the storm is still raging. But he starts to focus on the waves. He starts to focus on the wind. He starts to focus on his environment. He starts to focus on what's impossible. He starts to focus on the thing that is raging. And when he focuses on the voice of the storm, he begins to sink. What's my encouragement to us? In the midst of the storm, in the midst of your environment, wherever you are, what's happening to you, I want to encourage you to focus on Jesus Christ. Because most of us are praying that Jesus calms the storm, but actually we're missing the fact that Jesus is talking to us through the storm. He's calming us down through the storm. He's inviting us into the impossible. He's inviting us to focus on him and to walk on something that defies all odds. He's wanting us to focus on him. So whose voice are you listening to? Jesus, the storm, the boat with the friends in it, or yourself? Focus on Jesus. Whose voice are you listening to?